All right, guys, so we have embarrassing news, but look, we saw it coming. I predicted this a long time ago. Somebody dig up the clip of me when I think I was talking about Pramila Jayapal, and I said, I know what you're angling for. You want to eventually be the leader of the Dems. You want to be, like, majority leader, Speaker of the House, but they're going to give it to Hakeem Jeffries. There's no doubt about it. So anyway, I'm sure you know by now, Nancy Pelosi comes out yesterday, gives a speech, basically says, you know, I'm not going to run for a leadership role again. So she's stepping down from leadership effectively. And lo and behold, guess who's going to take her place? Hakeem Jeffries.
Oh, it's not Pramila? I am so shocked and surprised. Who could have possibly seen that coming?
The reason, I mean, there are many reasons why this is pathetic, but, you know, the biggest thing to discuss here is that Pramila Jayapal, in so many ways behind the scenes, has, not even behind the scenes, in front of the scenes in many ways, if you follow this stuff closely, she's appeased Pelosi over and over, and, like, she hasn't taken on fights with Pelosi over certain issues, and in her mind, she rationalized it, I'm sure, by saying, like, well, you know, when Pelosi steps aside, they're probably going to want another woman to take her place as a leader. And so I'm, like, being the head of the Congressional Progressive Caucus, I'm in a position where perhaps I'll be that leader. And so oftentimes the inability of the left flank of the Democrats to fight, the person who's primarily to blame for that is Pramila Jayapal.
Can I give 2 examples?
Oh, please, go.
Number 1, Progressive Caucus endorsing Shontel Brown against Nina Turner. Number 1, where the reporting behind the scenes was that she, like, called a caucus vote real quick and didn't even tell everybody about it, and then voted on the Shontel Brown endorsement before anyone could say anything about it. So that's number 1. When they could have just stayed out.
Yeah.
Could have just stayed out.
Stayed out.
So that's number 1. Number 2 is this recent entire disastrous fiasco with the fucking Ukraine letter. Yes. Where the progressives put out this, like, very mild, basically like, we love Ukraine, we love what the Biden administration is doing, we of course support, like, whatever Ukraine wants to do, but maybe, possibly, potentially, we should consider the option of diplomacy at some point. And then there's a huge Twitter backlash and freak out. Pramila Jayapal, first she puts on this whole statement clarifying, we didn't actually mean anything by it. And then hours later, not only retracts the letter, but throws the staff under the bus of, like, it's their fault, they put it out before we were ready, and we're sorry for their, et cetera, et cetera. So just as 2 examples of how terrible she's been.
Yeah, so Hakeem Jeffries, and I would pull up the exact quote on my phone, but I'm driving, as you can see, and you guys yelled at me the last time I did that, and also Crystal wouldn't like that very much if I pulled it up. But there's a quote from Hakeem Jeffries that I saw last night. He didn't say it last night, but I saw it on Twitter. People were quoting it last night. Somebody did a profile of him, like, a couple months ago, and he basically had this language of, like, look, I'm a strong black progressive, and so I'm not going to sit down. I'm going to stand up and fight, and I'm going to make sure that there are no far left Democratic socialists who take over the party. So he, like, starts the quote off by acting like, yeah, like, I'm gonna fight the right and actually stand up for left policies, but the quote ends with, like, and that's why we need to make sure we don't give in to the Bernie Sanders types of the party.
He's actually worse than Pelosi.
Yes, I think that's true.
Because
I think that's true. I think he's actually worse than Nancy Pelosi.
Pelosi, at least at one point in her life, supported universal health care. I mean, she came up as more of a progressive. Hakeem Jeffries has never been anything other than, you know, a corporate, like, centrist, ladder climbing operative. And he is more openly antagonistic and adversarial towards anything that smacks of the left. So yeah, it's worse. And what's disgraceful is to see, like, Jamal Bowman got asked, like, well, what do you think of the fact that now you're going to have the leader of the House Dems and the Senate Dems both be from New York? And he was like, well, I think that's gangster. It's like, do you stand for a single thing?
No, they don't.
A single thing?
No.
No. And, you know, here's the other thing is, like, the psychos on the Republican side in the House Freedom Caucus, they know that their, like, quixotic leadership fight they're having right now is not going to succeed in terms of getting their guy, Andy Biggs, to replace Kevin McCarthy. They know that's not going to work, but they want to extract some things so that they have more power within the House and within their own caucus. And that's going to succeed. They're going to get more power on committees. Marjorie and co are going to get their committee assignments back. Some of them are going to get committee chairmanships, whatever like little rule changes they want or whatever. They're going to get those things, and they're going to have a stronger hand to play and be more powerful in the House because they are willing to give their leadership heartburn. They are willing to be adversarial. I look at the progressives in the House, so-called, how are they at this point even really distinguishable from a regular rank and file Democrat that votes with leadership? Well, they aren't going to challenge for not even just the top slot, for a single one of the leadership positions. They're not even putting up a challenge. So they don't even have the chance to push for any sort of concession so that they could increase their power in the House.
So they're bragging about not being adversarial.
Right.
And spinning it like, hey, this is good because it shows that we're the serious people.
We're the adults in the room.
We're unified. But like you said, only people like us follow this stuff inside and out and know about the internal fights. This is in no way, shape, or form going to affect elections. The thing that affects elections is what you actually get done for people. And the only way you're going to get stuff done for people is, as the old saying goes, if you shoot for the stars, you might reach the moon. So you have to like be almost insane on your side and argue for everything on your side, and then maybe you extract 25% of what you're going to get. And we should also point out, just in case people don't know, the reason why the committee positions are important is because that's where they actually craft the legislation.
Right.
And so to have no actual progressives in those positions is devastating.
Right. And yes, they have clearly been persuaded, and you hear this in the language from AOC and from others, not just to pick on her, but she is a very high-profile member of the squad. They have been persuaded that the way for them to maximize their power is to basically go along to get along, right, and try to play the game. And how did that work out for Pramila Jayapal? Tell me about her upcoming leadership position. Like, it's so obviously, that strategy has completely and obviously failed. The thing you all have is a big grassroots following, social media presence, independent power base in terms of your ability to fundraise. That's what you leverage. That's what you throw around. And yeah, you have to sometimes act a little crazy, act a little bit like you are unwilling to bend, because that's how you get concessions that further the causes you claim to believe in. And they just don't seem to understand. So, I mean, that's the thing at this point. I'm like, most of y'all, how are you even different from any of the normal rank and file Dems that just go along with whatever leadership says? It's very hard to see. So
what the leaders have, the Hakeem Jeffries types and Nancy Pelosi, what they have is all the money, because they fundraise from big donors. So, fact I read earlier today, the #1 recipient of hedge fund money in the House, Hakeem Jeffries. Hakeem Jeffries, only 5% of his money, to be exact, it's 4.77% of his money, comes from small dollar donations. So basically, he's the biggest fundraiser, he's the biggest sellout, in the same way that Pelosi was the biggest fundraiser for the Democratic Party, which is why she ascended to leadership. What they have is money and institutional power. The only thing the left has is people power. So you have to be willing to leverage your supporters to actually make a stink about stuff and be loud and be aggressive and take no shit. And then by being really aggressive and being a thorn in their side, you force some concessions, because they have to maintain some semblance of credibility with the grassroots. So if you are totally uncompromising on something like Medicare for All, you make it more likely that as an olive branch, they realize we got to do something here, and they might fight for a public option
or something.
Just to give an example. So, and to Crystal's point, yeah, in terms of how they end up voting and acting, yeah, they're very, very similar to corporate Democrats. The only difference I could think of is on the rare occasions where, like say Cori Bush, because she was homeless, she actually went and protested the eviction moratorium that was lifted, and she actually slept outside. Like, there are little times where they show that, hey, we are actually better and we mean well.
Roe has been good on foreign policy. I think that's mattered, that he's been principled in like staking out this position that, hey, we should have diplomacy. He's been good and principled on Saudi. I mean, I don't want to like paint with too broad a brush, but overall there is a marked unwillingness to make leadership uncomfortable. And that's the primary reason you should be there.
It's not that much to ask for that we actually have some left ideologues who are crusaders for their policy ends. But unfortunately, we have all these people playing this macro game of like, yeah, if I just play the right way, the inside game, maybe I'll get some concessions. It never fucking works. It never has and never will.
They need to be willing to be villains of the media.
That's right.
Villains of leadership, villains of the establishment. Like, you need a few people who are willing to lean into that role, and there isn't a one of them.
That's right.
Not a one of them.
No, and it is pathetic. It is pathetic. All right, guys. We'll talk to you later.